Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of First Time Watch Fridays on Horror Film Lovers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking this out. Or I should say out, because we're gonna be doing a Canadian film, a 2020 Canadian film, as you can guess behind me. What film? If you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, it's the 2020 film Aquaslash. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I didn't like it. And I love slashers, so it really takes a lot to just kind of not get me into it. The problem I have with the movie is they try too hard to make it comedic. And because okay, so first of all, if you have a movie about a basically somebody killing people on water slides, or whatever, or at a water park, like that right there is sort of comedic, like idea premise, and it could be a really cool premise, and it could be fun. And the problem I had with the movie was, first of all, this was shot in Canada, as I said, and it was supposed to be Connecticut. I guess that's what I saw on the check, and I was just like, okay, why didn't they just make this Canadian? Like, why did they have to add that it was Connecticut? So anyway, I started watching this movie, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't watch any of the previews. I didn't, I knew nothing. So I went in blind, and I'm very glad I did, because I mean, all I knew was there were like water death slides or whatever, which I've always thought was kind of cool idea of, like, it would have been awesome had like okay, so there's a scene, and as we can see, there's just, the epic finale of the movie takes place on this big water slide that has like three water slides, and you all go down. I used to work at two different water parks in Virginia, and they have water slides just like this. So both. And so I'm used to this stuff, and here's the thing. Um First of all, you wouldn't have like the setup between it felt like it was too big of a water park for them to like have it be owned by some random guy who was filling in shoes and doing stuff for the I guess the graduates, to kind of give you a hint of what the movie is about if you haven't seen it. So it's about these kids who are like graduates of 2018 at this school or whatever, Westlake or something, some kind of high school, and they are having I don't know, a competition slash fun little get together thing over the week. There's one part where they say it was Tuesday on the person's what is it, phone, and I'm like, wait, are they there the whole week? Is this like, so they graduated on like, usually graduated on like a Saturday or Sunday or something, and then what? So they went after graduation, they went to this water park, and they're going to be there the whole week or something. I didn't get it. And there was like competitions. There was a lot of stuff with people who are like cheating on each other with other people, and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with the killings at the water park. And so uh basically there was a murder like 35 years ago, and we find this out, and now people are being murdered again, and they think it's whoever started the murder. Spoiler alert, for those who haven't seen it, please, earmuffs, or go watch it and then come back and listen to this. But spoiler alert, yes, they the one of the women there that works there, her I guess, I couldn't tell. Okay, so there's a guy named Paul. He was messing around with one of the students, it looked like. And then he like his wife got mad about it, and his wife, I'm not, all the characters sort of kind of blended in together, so I couldn't tell which one was who of like the group. But apparently the guy, there was this rich guy who was one of the students' fathers, and there was a big coincidence that he happened to be there because he was on the date with the guy, the woman who's dating or married. I couldn't tell what. There was just too much weirdness and too much, like I couldn't, too many characters. I couldn't follow everybody. Not saying that there should have been like less characters or whatever, but at least have like they could have expanded it past 70 minutes. I think the biggest problem is that 70-minute runtime doesn't help explain who the characters are exactly in relation to them. And then there's this guy who is such a obnoxious dude. He works at the park. He's he's dating this girl, but he like acts like he owns her. There's just too much shit going on. So yes, and that's in a 70-minute movie. And generally, I would say, oh man, a movie like this should be pretty short. But I would say it should have been an hour and a half. Now, sometimes I get mad at an hour and a half movie, and I'm like, why is this feels like it's too long. But in this case, it really felt like it was too short. Like they should have explained a lot more of what was going on and who everybody was. Because after a while, I started watching it going, who the fuck are these? What is going on? And why do I care about these people? At the end of the movie, the son who was the guy whose father, I guess he was going to make a big purchase. He was going to make a $20 million purchase to buy the park or something. Somehow or another, he ended up getting $20 million himself or something. And it was such a strange movie. Like there was no real enjoyment of things. So when you make a slasher film, especially a slasher film, if you're gonna call it Aquaslash, you're making a slasher film. I'm sorry, like just having people get slashed up at the end of the movie doesn't really count. There's a couple other murders, but they're like really, it's not as much, and you don't really care as much. But so there's these at the end of the movie, obviously, like the climax stuff, there's a I guess like some what's called something like, it was like this, a cross and or an X ish thing. It's like a metal, and everybody who got in it would just their body would just chop up and stuff. So the people are sliding down the slide, and then they're going right through it, and blood's flowing, and it's pretty gruesome. The special effects were done by a group called the Blood Brothers, and I kind of want to follow them more. They were probably the bright spot to it, but in the same sense, it felt unlikely that if you've ever worked at a water park. So they did one thing. They'd have radios or whatnot, and usually you have phones, not like walkie talkies. So people pick up the phone and say, "Hey, what's going on? What's taking people so long?" Or or down at the bottom, they'll be like, "Hey, are you ready?" They'd have a button or something, and that you press. Actually, in most of the parks that I've worked at, there was usually a when they've crossed a certain point, that's when like a button would come up, like the one that they have, that that I have in the background there. That would usually have a like signal that would go to the top and let the next people know. Now, if they had that would have been interesting, because the thing is, once they pass by that thing, they would just keep sending people down, not knowing that there's all the stuff going up until somebody calls them up at the top, says, stop. So me knowing so much about water parks, having worked at them, I don't buy it. I don't buy any of it, especially if it's this big of a water park. It just felt like they were treating it like this was a small town water park with, blah blah blah. This had mini rides. This was not a small potatoes. I don't know where they shot at, but it was damn pretty good. So I was impressed by the water park itself. I would have been more impressed by like a serial killer slashing people that were like out making out. And another thing I laughed at was there's sex throughout the whole movie inside the water park. Like they were just like getting it on any place that they could find. And I was just like, I've worked at multiple water parks. I've never walked in on people like just going at it. Now, I know I've heard rumors that people had done that or something and whatnot, but I've never seen it. So usually that would probably happen when the park is closed, when like nobody's around or something. So this just made no sense. Like, well, I mean, one of them, it seemed like it was, whatever. It was sometime before then, but it just didn't feel like this was actually true. Like this was sort of bullshit of stuff. And maybe the guy who wrote it worked at a water park, and that's how he came up with the idea. I mean, I've even thought, man, it would be really cool to shoot a movie here at the water parks. But it just sort of doesn't make any sense if you have a big water park that people wouldn't notice somebody being murdered, or the dead bodies or something. So I didn't buy the movie necessarily. I did like all the blood and heads and arms and shit, and I like the deaths were cool, but aside from that, the movie was just sort of blah, and I just did not like it. No, I once again I will recommend it for the blood, guts, and gore, aspect of it. I don't really remember any actual nudity. They have sex, and it's like it's like them with like pulling back the panties a little bit so that and I'm like, that looks very uncomfortable to do it at. Like, why wouldn't she just pull down her panties? Well, she wouldn't pull down her panties probably because they don't want she doesn't want to show her ass on camera. That's the truth. So so they figure out a way, okay, if we just do it like this, it'll simulate like you're having sex. And plus he didn't even have his like, was he like having sex with her with his like zipper down and everything? That seems very uncomfortable. I don't know. There was some things like that I just didn't buy. I didn't like. I felt like it was too I don't know. It tried too hard to be funny too, and at times I just hated all the characters. And that's usually fine for a slasher because a lot of them are gonna die. It might take them a while, but they're gonna die at some point. There's this guy that his name was like Phil or something, and he was a black kid. And I was just like, God damn. And I hate when there's like a running quote unquote joke with somebody's name. Like there was this guy that kept calling him Chip. They kept calling him what was the other one? It was Chip or Chud, I'm like, who the fuck calls somebody Chud? Like it was just a joke that just went too long. So every time he had a character, was my name's Chad. And I'm like, and like at the end, he's like, my name's Chad. Like he's all pissed off and shit about it. But like, I'm like, this is just annoying. Like that's like those kind of things kind of piss me off. I try not to write when I write stuff, jokes like that, because it's just too obvious. And then it becomes a thing where if you're gonna do it throughout the whole movie, it's going to get annoying. So I don't know. I think maybe if you watch this and do like drinking games or something, you might have more fun. a little bit more fun. I'll just say there's not that many deaths until the end of the movie. So like there's only 70 minutes, so 71 minutes. So for like 51 minutes, there's like two or three deaths. The rest is like just them talking or running away from each other or fighting or whatever and bullshit. And it's not as fun of a movie as it could have been with the title. If they do an Aquaslash 2, if this ever happens and they make enough money that they're like, oh, let's do an Aquaslash 2, I would suggest a person in a mask going around murdering everybody, just like 80s horror films. Because I got excited. I thought that's where they were going. Especially since they said they were going to play an 80s song. They did play an 80s song, which was freaking awesome. But aside from that, I just found like the movie to be just too boring. And for that, that's like the sin of horror films. And a movie called Aquaslash that has this kind of stuff. People aren't going to sit around and like watch this stuff. I honestly, if I weren't reviewing this, I would have turned it off and watched something else because I was getting really bored. These characters were just not as much fun. I was very confused. There was just too much going on. There was stuff I didn't understand, maybe because it's Canadian and I don't understand that. I don't know. So all in all, I think if you're gonna watch this movie, just go in and like I'd almost say just skip to the end. Just go on YouTube and find like if they have like the ending or whatever, because that stuff's kind of the coolest part. But the rest of it is sort of boring and it gets you there very slowly, which shouldn't happen in these kind of movies. So, with that being said, I hope that they do continue to make movies. I hope they do continue to make fun movies out there in Canada. Please call it Canada. Don't call it Connecticut. Like everybody you could tell was Canadian. There was no use to that. I think a lot of Canadians tend to do that because they think that it will attract more US buyers if it looks like it was filmed in, or it was not filmed, but it was supposed to take place in Connecticut. So I don't know. All in all, I would say, like I said, it's on Showtime. So this actually starts my Showtime. I think I've got like 4 months of show or 4 or 5, almost 5 months of show movies for Showtime that I'm going to do. Ones I have not seen, and I'm really excited about it. Then after that, it goes on to HBO Max. So I'm kind of doing a thing where I'm doing kind of a theme here, and it's all Showtime movies now. From now on, for like 15 movies, you get Showtime films, movies that are on Showtime. So just get ready for that. I'm really excited about this, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Bye.